She had been waiting for this day for as long as she could remember. The day that could change everything? The day of the international music competition. She woke up before dawn, her mind already racing through the scales and pieces she had practiced for months. Every note, every pause, every soft touch of the keys had been memorized countless times. But the thought of performing in front of the world-famous Maestro made her heart pound. She had heard stories about him. His reputation was intimidating. He had trained countless musicians, and many had said his praise could launch a career. But his criticism could destroy confidence in an instant. She knew that to impress him, she had to be flawless. Yet she had to find a way to play with soul, to let the music speak for itself as she got ready. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear of the audience, but because of the weight of expectations she had placed on herself. Her parents had always been supportive, but they had also reminded her that this was more than just a competition. It was an opportunity to show what she was capable of, to push herself beyond limits. She took a deep breath, tried to calm her mind, and reminded herself that music had always been her safe place, the one thing that made her feel alive. If she lost herself in the music, she could forget the nerves, the judgment, and the pressure. When she arrived at the venue, she was awestruck. The hall was enormous, filled with hundreds of chairs, each occupied by people who had come from different parts of the world. The stage gleamed under the bright lights, the grand piano shining like a jewel in the center. Contestants were warming up, their fingers running over keyboards, practicing the first few bars, some murmuring quietly to themselves. She could feel the tension in the air, the quiet whispers of worry, excitement, and anticipation mingling together. Backstage, she tried to focus. She played a few scales on a small practice keyboard, feeling the familiar rhythm that always grounded her. Her mind drifted for a moment to the Maestro, who was sitting in the front row of judges reading a program quietly. His reputation preceded him. Stories of him cutting off performers mid-song or shaking his head with disapproval flashed through her memory. She could almost hear the harshness in his voice, the pointed remarks meant to embarrass anyone who faltered. She swallowed hard. She had to convince herself not to let his presence rattle her. She reminded herself that she had worked too hard, had poured too much of herself into this preparation to let anyone, even a maestro, shake her confidence. When her name was called, her heart jumped. She walked onto the stage, the lights blinding her for a moment. She could hear the quiet rustle of the audience, a faint murmur as people turned to look at the young pianist stepping forward. She approached the grand piano, feeling the coolness of the keys under her fingers. She paused, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. This was her moment. This was the stage she had dreamed of. She would give everything she had. As she began to play, the first notes felt familiar, comforting. They were her friends, her companions, through years of practice and struggle. Slowly, she started to lose herself in the music. Each piece she played told a story, every note carrying emotion, every chord expressing something words could not. She felt her fingers moving almost automatically, guided by a mixture of memory and intuition, each one touching the keys with purpose and grace. For a few minutes, nothing else existed except the music and her connection to it. But then she felt it, a sharp, calculating gaze from the maestro. She opened her eyes slightly and saw him watching, his expression unreadable but unmistakably critical. His lips were pressed together, eyes narrowing slightly as he observed every subtle movement, every minor hesitation. She could feel her confidence waver, a small ripple of doubt creeping in. The stories she had heard about him came alive in that moment. She could almost hear the imagined words, cutting and sharp, meant to make her falter. She closed her eyes again, focusing inward. She reminded herself that she had practiced for this, that every moment of doubt could be transformed into strength if she concentrated fully on the music. She let the notes flow from her heart, letting the emotion she had carried for years into the performance guide her fingers. She thought about her journey, the countless hours spent practicing late at night, the sacrifices she had made, and the joy she had found in every note. She let all of that energy pour into her playing, not for the judges, not for the audience, but for herself. The music began to change, becoming more expressive, more alive. She allowed herself to play with freedom, to let the piano sing, to let her emotions guide the rhythm. She noticed the audience leaning forward slightly, drawn into the sound as if the music itself had captured them. She could see the subtle nods of appreciation, the occasional smile, but she paid them no mind. Her eyes were closed again, her focus unbroken. This was her conversation with the piano, her chance to speak through sound, as she reached the more difficult passages. The ones she had struggled with countless times during practice. She felt a surge of determination. She would not let fear or doubt control her performance. She reminded herself that the maestro's opinion was only one perspective, and her worth was not measured by his judgment alone. With each challenging sequence, she found a new rhythm, a new way to express herself, turning potential mistakes into moments of beauty. The notes became confident, flowing effortlessly, each one resonating with clarity and emotion. By the time she reached the final bars of her piece, she could feel a calm sense of triumph washing over her. The music had carried her through fear, through doubt, and had allowed her to shine in a way she had never imagined. The last note lingered in the air, a perfect resonant sound that seemed to echo her determination and perseverance. She lifted her hands from the keys slowly, savoring the final moment, feeling the applause start to build around her. She opened her eyes and saw the audience clapping, some standing, some with wide smiles, others with impressed looks. Even the maestro, whose expression had been so critical at the beginning, now sat quietly, watching with a hint of surprise. A recognition she could not quite read as she walked off the stage. Her legs felt weak, but exhilarated. Backstage, she allowed herself a small smile, knowing she had given everything she could. She did not yet know what the judges would say, nor how the maestro would critique her, but she felt proud. She had faced her fear, had confronted the scrutiny, and had let her music shine through. That sense of accomplishment, that personal victory, felt more important than any award. Sitting quietly in the wings, she reflected on the experience. She thought about all the early mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices, and the joy that playing piano had brought her. She realized that this moment, intimidating as it was, had taught her something important, that confidence comes not from avoiding fear, but from moving forward despite it. She had faced judgment, and while the outcome was not yet certain, she had already proven something to herself. As the next contestant began to play, she felt a renewed sense of determination. She knew that this was only the beginning, that challenges still awaited. But she also knew that she had the strength to meet them. She had learned to focus, to trust herself, and to allow the music to guide her, no matter who was watching. In that moment, she felt a quiet joy, a sense of purpose that went beyond awards or recognition. It was the pure, unshakable love of music that would carry her forward, through every critique and every stage, to wherever her talent and courage would take her. After her audition, she stepped off the stage and felt a mix of relief and anxiety. The applause still echoed in her ears, but so did the critical eyes of the maestro. She could not shake the feeling that he had been judging every subtle movement, every breath, every slight hesitation. Backstage, contestants were whispering about their performances, some excited, some nervous, some disappointed. She found a quiet corner to collect her thoughts. Her hands still trembling slightly from adrenaline, the hall was bustling with activity. Musicians carried their instruments, tuning and practicing, while judges moved from one performance to the next. Her mind replayed the maestro's gaze, and though she tried to dismiss it, the weight of his silent critique pressed on her. She remembered stories of him pointing out minor mistakes in front of everyone, making young musicians doubt their abilities. She knew that even if she had performed perfectly, he might still find something to criticize. The thought made her stomach tighten. Her mentor approached her, offering a gentle smile. "You played beautifully," he said. "Remember, the music you create matters more than anyone's opinion." "The maestro may be strict, but your heart spoke through your fingers." She nodded, appreciating the words, but the shadow of doubt lingered. She knew she had played well, but the possibility of harsh criticism haunted her. The next round was coming, and the stakes were higher. She needed to prepare, not just technically, but emotionally. The thought of facing the maestro again filled her with nervous anticipation. She decided to focus on what she could control: her practice, her expression, her connection to the music. She returned to the practice room, where a few contestants were quietly rehearsing. The atmosphere was tense. Every keystroke seemed amplified, every note a test of skill. She closed her eyes, letting the familiar rhythm guide her fingers over the keys. She replayed the maestro's imagined critiques in her mind. But instead of letting them discourage her, she turned them into motivation. Each note became a statement, each chord a proof of her dedication. She reminded herself that this was not a battle against him, but a chance to share her talent, to let her music shine without fear. During breaks, she wandered the hall, observing the other performers. Some seemed confident, others anxious. She noticed the diversity of talent, from young prodigies to seasoned musicians. Every face reflected a story of practice, sacrifice, and passion. She realized that she was not alone in her nervousness. Everyone was striving to do their best, to overcome fear, to express themselves through music. This thought brought her comfort. She was part of something bigger than the competition, a community bound by a shared love for music. When the next round was announced, she felt her pulse quicken. Contestants lined up waiting for their turn on the stage. She watched as others performed, noting the emotions they conveyed, the technical mastery, and the moments of vulnerability. Each performance was a lesson, a reminder that music was about more than perfection. It was about connection, feeling, and honesty. She took mental notes, but she did not allow herself to compare. She had her own voice, her own story, and that was what mattered. As her name was called again, a wave of nervous excitement washed over her. She walked toward the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. She could feel the eyes of the audience, the cameras, and, most importantly, the maestro upon her. The weight of expectation threatened to shake her, but she steadied herself. She reminded herself that fear was natural, but it could not control her. She had to trust in her preparation, in her love for music. In her own strength, the moment she touched the keys, a sense of calm returned. The first notes were gentle, exploratory, almost conversational. She felt the music responding to her as if the piano itself understood her intentions. Gradually, her confidence grew. She allowed herself to play with emotion, letting the melody flow naturally. Each phrase was deliberate, yet full of life, and she could sense the audience being drawn into her performance. The maestro, sitting in his chair, observed silently, his expression still hard to read. She knew he was analyzing every aspect, but she refused to let that distract her. She focused on the story she wanted to tell, the feelings she wanted to share. Halfway through her piece, she encountered a technically difficult passage. Her fingers danced quickly over the keys, maintaining precision while conveying emotion. She had practiced this moment countless times, yet the pressure of the live audience made it different. She felt a surge of determination. Every challenge was an opportunity to demonstrate resilience, to turn potential mistakes into moments of brilliance. She reminded herself that music was not about perfection but about expression. This mindset freed her, and she continued playing with renewed passion as the final notes approached. The intensity of her performance increased. She played with heart, pouring years of practice, hope, and courage into each keystroke. The hall seemed to fade away. Only the sound of the piano and the energy of her own resolve mattered. When the last note lingered in the air, she allowed herself to breathe. The silence that followed was filled with anticipation, as if the audience collectively held their breath, waiting for the response of the maestro and the judges. The applause was immediate and overwhelming. She could hear it echoing around the hall, a mixture of admiration and surprise. Contestants and audience members alike were moved by the depth of her performance. Even the maestro, who had remained composed throughout, showed a subtle sign of acknowledgement. His eyes, previously critical, now reflected recognition. She could not yet say if he was fully impressed, but the moment of connection through music was undeniable. She had communicated her story, her dedication, and her talent. Backstage, her hands shook with the release of tension. She felt exhilarated, but also exhausted. She had faced the scrutiny of the world-famous maestro, and had not faltered. The validation from her own effort and the audience's response filled her with a quiet pride. She realized that the true reward was not necessarily the approval of the judges, but the ability to trust herself and her music. She had proven, if only to herself, that fear and doubt could be overcome by focus, passion, and determination. Her mentor returned, offering encouragement and praise. "You held your ground," he said. "That was a performance full of heart. Remember this feeling. This is the kind of strength that will carry you through the competition." She nodded, taking in the words, allowing them to settle. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, more moments of judgment, and possibly more attempts at humiliation from the maestro, but she felt ready. She had discovered a new level of confidence, a deeper connection to her own music, and an understanding that her voice mattered as the day continued. She observed other performances with a new perspective. She listened to their interpretations, noting their strengths and weaknesses, but also appreciating the courage it took to perform under pressure. She felt inspired by their dedication, realizing that every musician on that stage shared a common struggle and a common dream. The competition was fierce, but it was also a celebration of talent, persistence, and human emotion. To be part of it, to have a platform where music could transcend fear and judgment. When the day ended, she returned to her hotel room, mentally replaying her performance. As she reflected on every moment, every note, every emotion. She knew the maestro's critique was yet to come, but she refused to dwell on it negatively. Instead, she focused on her growth, her accomplishments, and the joy that music brought her. She practiced briefly, refining small details, but mostly she allowed herself to rest, knowing that the next round would demand both skill and emotional resilience. Lying in bed, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The long hours of practice, the sacrifices, the moments of doubt, and the victories, big and small. She realized that the competition was not just about winning, but about discovering the depths of her own ability and learning to trust in herself. The memory of the maestro's gaze no longer intimidated her. It became a challenge, a reason to push harder, to express herself even more fully, to prove that her music had value and power. As sleep approached, she felt a sense of calm determination. Tomorrow would bring new trials, new performances, and possibly new critiques, but she was ready. She had faced doubt, fear, and potential humiliation, and she had emerged stronger. Music was her guide, her refuge, and her weapon. She was prepared to continue this journey, not just to impress others, but to honor her own dedication, courage, and love for the piano. The next day, the competition reached a new level. The finals were approaching, and the hall felt even more alive with tension and expectation. She arrived early, giving herself time to warm up and mentally prepare. The memory of her previous performance lingered in her mind, giving her both confidence and a quiet nervousness. She knew the maestro had watched her closely, and the thought of facing him again filled her with a mix of anticipation and determination. Backstage, the atmosphere was electric. Contestants whispered quietly, discussing their pieces, their techniques, and their hopes. She observed them, noticing the mix of anxiety and excitement on their faces. Practiced intensely, fingers flying over keyboards, while others sat in silence, focusing inward. She felt a connection to each of them, understanding the dedication, the sacrifice, the vulnerability that came with performing under pressure. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel solidarity with her fellow musicians, drawing strength from the shared experience. Her mentor came to her side, offering a reassuring smile. "Remember, this is your music," he said. "The maestro may have his expectations, but your goal is to play from your heart. Let the audience feel your story through every note. You are ready for this." She nodded, taking a deep breath. She focused on the journey she had taken to reach this point, the years of practice, the late nights, the moments of doubt and triumph. She allowed herself to feel gratitude for her own perseverance. When it was her turn, she stepped onto the stage. The bright lights momentarily blinded her, but she adjusted quickly, letting her eyes sweep over the audience. The maestro was there, as always, his expression unreadable. She could feel the weight of his gaze, but instead of letting it intimidate her, she used it as fuel. She reminded herself that he was only one listener among many, and her music had value regardless of his opinion. She approached the piano, letting her fingers hover above the keys. For a moment, she closed her eyes and centered herself. She felt the familiar rhythm of the instrument, the way the wood resonated under her touch, the subtle vibration of the strings. She took a deep breath and began to play. The first notes were soft, tentative, but filled with emotion. She allowed herself to sink into the music, letting her heart guide her fingers. Each phrase carried her story, her struggles, and her passion for the piano. As she progressed, her confidence grew. She played with precision and feeling, every note carefully considered yet alive with spontaneity. The audience leaned forward, drawn into the performance, feeling the emotions she expressed. She could sense the maestro watching intently, his eyes scanning every movement, yet she refused to be distracted. She focused on the connection between herself and the piano, letting the music become an extension of her own spirit. Halfway through her piece, she reached a challenging passage. Her fingers moved rapidly, maintaining accuracy while conveying intensity. She had practiced this sequence countless times, but the pressure of the finals added a new layer of difficulty. She reminded herself to breathe, to trust her preparation, and to embrace the challenge. The music flowed from her not as a test, but as a story. She transformed every potential mistake into a moment of expression, turning tension into beauty. The audience was captivated. She could see subtle reactions, nods of appreciation, and expressions of awe. Even the maestro's posture changed slightly, a sign that her performance was affecting him. She did not play to impress him, but she noticed the shift, feeling a quiet sense of validation. Her music had reached its goal, to communicate, to inspire, and to connect. She continued with a combination of technical skill and emotional depth, ensuring that every note resonated with authenticity. As the piece neared its climax, she felt a surge of energy. The music became more expressive, more powerful, and more heartfelt. She allowed herself to fully inhabit the performance, letting her emotions guide every movement. Her fingers moved with confidence. Her body swayed gently with the rhythm, and her heart beat in time with the music. The hall seemed to disappear, leaving only the sound of the piano and the energy she created. The final notes approached, and she played them with a sense of resolution and triumph. Each sound lingered, echoing through the hall, creating a moment of stillness before the applause erupted. The audience reacted with enthusiasm, some rising to their feet, others clapping vigorously. She allowed herself a small smile, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced the pressure, the judgment, and the challenge, and she had emerged stronger. Backstage, her mentor embraced her briefly, praising her performance. "You played from your heart," he said. "That is what makes music unforgettable. No one can take that away from you." She nodded, her mind still processing the intensity of the moment. She realized that the journey was not just about winning, but about discovering her own strength, resilience, and voice. Through music, she observed the other finalists, appreciating their talent and courage. Each performance was unique, each musician bringing their own story to life. She felt inspired and connected to them, recognizing that the competition was not only a test of skill, but a celebration of dedication and expression. She had learned that success was not only about recognition, but about the ability to communicate, to touch hearts, and to remain true to oneself. When the final results were announced, she felt a mixture of anticipation and calm. She knew she had done her best, that she had performed with authenticity and passion. The applause for the winners filled the hall, and she felt proud of her own journey, regardless of the outcome. The experience had strengthened her confidence, deepened her connection to music, and taught her the value of perseverance and courage. That night, she reflected on the day's events. She thought about the maestro's gaze, the audience's reactions, and her own feelings during the performance. She realized that true strength came not from avoiding fear, but from embracing it, channeling it into something meaningful. Music had given her a voice, a way to express herself, and a path to personal growth. She felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination, ready to continue her journey, to face future challenges, and to share her music with the world. As she lay in bed, her mind replayed the performance one last time. She remembered the intensity, the connection, and the emotional journey she had experienced. She understood that the competition was only one step in a larger path, a path that would continue to challenge, inspire, and shape her. She felt grateful for the opportunity, proud of her progress, and excited for the future. She knew that her music was her true strength, and that it would guide her through every obstacle, every stage, and every moment of doubt. With a calm and focused heart, she drifted into sleep, ready for whatever the next day might bring. The day of her final performance had arrived, and the air in the hall felt charged with excitement and tension. Contestants moved quietly through the backstage area, preparing, warming up, and reviewing their pieces one last time. She took a deep breath, trying to center herself. Her journey to this point had been long and demanding, filled with challenges and moments of doubt. But she knew she had worked hard and prepared as best as she could. She allowed herself to feel a quiet confidence. She had faced the Maestro before, had felt the weight of his scrutiny, and had not faltered. Today she intended to let her music speak louder than any critique, as she waited for her name to be called. She observed the audience, feeling a mix of anticipation and calm. People had come from around the world to witness this competition, and every face reflected curiosity and eagerness. The lights above the stage glimmered, casting a warm glow on the grand piano. She felt a sense of connection to everyone present, not as observers, but as participants in a shared celebration of music. This thought grounded her, reminding her that her performance was not just for judgment, but for expression, for communication, and for the love of music itself. Her mentor approached, offering a reassuring smile and gentle words. "Remember, this is your moment. Play from your heart and the audience will feel it. Trust yourself and your music. The Maestro will watch, but your focus is what matters." She nodded, taking a deep breath and feeling a sense of calm wash over her. She had prepared for every note, every chord, every emotion she wanted to convey. Now it was time to let go of fear and fully immerse herself in the performance. When her name was announced, she stepped onto the stage. The applause greeted her, but she did not let it distract her. She walked toward the piano with measured steps, feeling the familiar coolness of the keys under her fingertips. She paused, letting her hands hover above the keys, feeling the rhythm of the instrument. For a moment, she closed her eyes and allowed herself to center, to draw strength from the music she loved and the years of practice she had dedicated to this craft. The first notes flowed gently, delicate but full of intention. She felt the music responding to her emotions, each note carrying meaning and depth. Her fingers moved with precision and fluidity, guided by both memory and intuition. The audience leaned forward, captivated by the clarity and emotion of her playing. She could sense the Maestro's gaze, sharp and evaluating, but she refused to be intimidated. Instead, she let it remind her of her own strength and the power of her performance. As the piece progressed, she played with a combination of technical mastery and heartfelt expression. She navigated complex passages with confidence, allowing the music to breathe and flow naturally. Every note, every chord, every pause was deliberate, yet alive with emotion. She felt a connection not only to the piano but to the audience, creating a shared experience through sound. The hall seemed to fade away, leaving only her, the piano, and the music she had poured so much of herself into. Midway through her performance, she reached a particularly challenging section, one that had tested her countless times in practice. Her fingers moved swiftly yet carefully, each key struck with purpose. She focused on the emotion behind each phrase, transforming potential mistakes into moments of expression. She reminded herself that music was not only about precision, but about communication, about telling a story through sound. The intensity of the piece rose, and she embraced it, letting her heart guide every movement. The audience was captivated, completely absorbed in the performance. She noticed subtle reactions, A quiet gasp, a nod of admiration. Eyes widened in surprise at the beauty of the music. Even the maestro, known for his critical demeanor, leaned forward slightly, his expression showing unmistakable attention. She did not play to impress him, yet she felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that her music had reached him. It was a silent acknowledgement of her dedication and talent. As she approached the final segment, she felt a surge of energy. The music became more expressive, more powerful, and more emotive. She allowed herself to fully inhabit the performance, letting her passion guide each note. Her fingers moved with both skill and feeling. Her body swayed gently with the rhythm, and her heart beat in sync with the music. The piano seemed to sing, carrying her story, her struggles, her triumphs, and her joy to everyone in the hall. The final chords echoed through the hall, resonant and full of life. She held the last note, letting it linger, creating a moment of stillness and reflection. The audience remained silent for a heartbeat, as if absorbing the weight of the performance, before erupting into applause. The sound was overwhelming, a mixture of admiration, surprise, and appreciation. She allowed herself a small, proud smile, feeling the culmination of years of hard work and determination. Even the maestro, known for his stringent critiques, could not hide his reaction. There was a subtle shift in his demeanor, a softening of the critical edge, replaced with an unmistakable respect. She felt the validation not as a reward, but as recognition of her perseverance, her talent, and her ability to communicate through music. She had faced the pressure, the judgment, and the expectations, and she had emerged triumphant. Backstage, her mentor embraced her, offering words of pride and encouragement. "That was extraordinary," he said. "You played with heart, with courage, and with honesty. Remember this feeling? This is the kind of strength that will guide you through every stage of your journey." She nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The applause still echoed in her mind, a reminder of the impact her music had made. She watched the other finalists perform, appreciating their talent and courage. Each musician brought something unique to the stage, a reflection of their own dedication and story. She realized that the competition was not only about winning, but about celebrating music, resilience, and personal expression. Every performer, including herself, had contributed to an unforgettable experience, and she felt grateful to be part of it. That evening, she reflected on her performance and the journey that had brought her there. She thought about the maestro's gaze, the audience's reactions, and the emotions she had conveyed. She understood that true success was not only measured in awards, but in the ability to trust herself, to embrace vulnerability, and to communicate through her music. She had transformed fear into confidence, doubt into determination, pressure into expression. As she lay in bed that night, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had faced one of the most critical and intimidating judges of her career, and had proven to herself that her talent and dedication could rise above fear and judgment. She knew that challenges would continue, that performances and evaluations would come, but she felt ready. She had discovered her inner strength and the power of her own music. With a heart full of gratitude, determination, and joy, she drifted into sleep, prepared for the recognition and opportunities that awaited her. The moment she stepped off the stage after her final performance, the applause and excitement of the audience still ringing in her ears, she felt a mix of relief, pride, and disbelief. Months, even years of preparation had led to this instant, and she had given everything she had. Her fingers, once trembling with nerves, now tingled with the satisfaction of expression, of having shared her soul through music. She walked backstage, taking in the bright lights, the buzzing energy of contestants, and the murmur of judges discussing performances. Despite the chaos, she felt calm inside, a quiet confidence that came from knowing she had played with all her heart. Her mentor met her, a proud smile on his face. "That was extraordinary," he said, embracing her. "You were fearless, honest, and brilliant. You let your music speak, and everyone heard it." She nodded, her emotions swirling. Words felt inadequate to describe the depth of what she was feeling. It's the relief of having faced intense scrutiny and emerged with her integrity and talent intact. She knew that no critique, no matter how sharp, could take away the honesty and effort she had poured into that performance. As the judges prepared to announce the results, tension built in the hall. Contestants gathered together, sharing nervous smiles and quiet encouragements. She felt a sense of camaraderie with them, recognizing that each of them had poured their heart into this moment. The competition was fierce, but it was also a celebration of dedication, courage, and talent. Every performer had a story, and now they were all part of a shared experience. Bound by the music they loved, the maestro, who had been critical and distant in previous rounds, now approached her. She felt her heart beat faster, uncertain of what to expect. His expression was unreadable at first, but then a subtle change came over his face, a softness, a recognition, and a hint of admiration. He spoke quietly, his voice carrying both respect and sincerity. "You played with heart, courage, and truth. Your performance was remarkable. I underestimated you, and I acknowledge that now." Her chest swelled with a mixture of pride and humility. The validation she had longed for was not in praise alone, but in recognition from someone whose judgment had been so feared. She thanked him, understanding that this acknowledgement marked not the end of her journey, but an important milestone. She had proven not only her skill, but also her resilience, her ability to remain true to herself in the face of intense pressure. When the announcement of the winners came, the hall erupted. She had won the top prize, a moment that was exhilarating and humbling all at once. She stood on stage to receive her award, feeling the weight of the moment, the culmination of years of practice, perseverance, and passion. Cameras flashed, hands clapped, and the audience's cheers filled the space. But amidst all the celebration, she felt a quiet, personal joy. The recognition was meaningful, yes, but it was the journey itself, the preparation, the struggles, the self-discovery that mattered most. Backstage, contestants congratulated one another, sharing smiles and warm words. She realized that winning was only one part of the experience. The connections formed, the respect earned, and the personal growth achieved were equally important. She felt grateful to be among such talented musicians, each striving to give their best, each contributing to the beauty of the event. The competition had been rigorous, but it had also been inspiring, a testament to dedication, artistry, and courage as she reflected on the events. She thought about her early days of practice, the countless hours spent perfecting each piece, the moments of frustration and self-doubt, and the small victories that had kept her moving forward. Each note she had played in those long nights, each repetition of scales and arpeggios had led her here. She felt a deep appreciation for her own persistence, for her willingness to face fear, and for the love of music that had driven her. She understood now that the true triumph was not simply the trophy or applause, but the realization of her own capabilities and the affirmation of her own voice. In the days following the competition, her story began to spread. People were inspired by her perseverance, her ability to face humiliation and criticism with grace, and her triumph through skill and dedication. Invitations for performances arrived, and she was asked to share her story with young musicians. She realized that her journey had become more than a personal achievement. It had become a source of inspiration for others, a reminder that talent combined with resilience and passion could overcome even the most daunting challenges. She continued to practice diligently, not out of fear or pressure, but out of love for music. She explored new compositions, experimented with emotion and style, and shared her performances in various settings, from small, intimate halls to large stages. Each performance was an opportunity to communicate, to connect, and to grow. The recognition she had received was valuable, but her true motivation remained the music itself, the joy of creation, and the connection it brought to others. Reflecting on her interactions with the maestro, she realized the importance of humility, perseverance, and self-belief. His critique had been a challenge, but it had also been a catalyst for growth. She had learned to trust herself, to focus on the music rather than judgment, and to find strength in her own abilities. This lesson would guide her throughout her career. shaping her approach to performance, practice, and personal growth. Over time, she continued to perform and inspire, sharing her journey with audiences and young musicians alike. Her story became a testament to the power of resilience, dedication, and courage. She demonstrated that obstacles and criticism could be transformed into opportunities for growth, and that true success lay not only in recognition, but in the ability to stay true to oneself and one's passions. Looking back, she felt profound gratitude for every moment of challenge, every note played, and every moment of doubt she had faced. Each had contributed to her growth, her confidence, and her understanding of what it meant to be a musician. She had proven not only to the world, but to herself, that talent, combined with perseverance and passion, could achieve greatness. Her journey had reached a significant milestone, but it was only the beginning of a lifelong adventure with music, expression, and personal growth. In quiet moments, she would sit at her piano, letting her fingers glide over the keys, replaying the experiences of the competition, and feeling the depth of her own emotions. Music had become her voice, her refuge, and her strength. She knew that she would face challenges in the future, moments of doubt, and critical eyes once more. But she was confident in her ability to overcome them. She had discovered the power of persistence, the importance of self-belief, and the joy of expressing herself through her art. Her journey had not been easy, but it had been meaningful, transformative, and empowering. She had faced fear, criticism, and uncertainty, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident. She had shared her music with the world, touched hearts, and proven that determination, talent, and courage could triumph over obstacles. As she continued her path, she carried with her the lessons, the experiences, and the joy that music had brought, ready to inspire, create, and connect with every note she played.